Tariffs, inflation, recession fears. Wall Street is in sell mode, but are markets overreacting? The president already announcing concessions with Mexico. With us for the entire hour, I'm pleased to say our Bahnsen Group founder and managing partner, David Bahnsen.
Woo-hoo.
So the president is, but still the question remains. Are these headwinds or are they tailwinds pushing the U.S. towards a stronger, fairer trade deal? That's where I want to go with David Bahnsen, because we know typically you want a free market that works in a perfect world, right, with no tariffs. But we don't live in a perfect world. How do you feel about this?
The fact that we don't live in a perfect world is why I feel so strongly about this, because I believe governmental involvement makes an imperfect world more imperfect. I don't believe in a utopian vision where the government can centrally plan what the right prices are to be paid amongst economic actors. The people that I want to set a price are those with skin in the game, those who are actually participating in a transaction. And I don't believe that tariffs facilitate that. And ultimately, this whole argument that this is all being done towards getting to a better deal, I'm totally open to that argument. If it's all negotiation and so forth, we'll let it play out. But that's not what's being said. It's being said that Canada's ripping us off because they sell us more stuff than we sell them. I got my hair cut this morning. I have never sold her anything. And she has constantly cut my hair. And I don't think it's an unfair transaction. And that's the analogy I use all the time, because when it comes to a country selling us things, it takes willing, free buyers and sellers.
But what about if the other country isn't free? Howard Lutnick this morning was making comments where he said in aggregate, about on average-ish, China puts about 50% tariff on our goods. So if the other side isn't playing fair, we have to respond, do we not?
But that example you use makes my point. Why are we using a China example when we're talking about Canada and Mexico? So let's discuss China about China. Let's discuss Canada about Canada. By poisoning the well, by cross-pollinating them all together, it's making the conversation harder, not easier.
And like Trump said in his speech, we're going to go through some tough times here, might be some headwinds, but ultimately, I would like to see American workers and families have an equal opportunity, equal footing.
And I think that's a very important point, that we not decide which American workers. I want American workers to have an equal footing. If we talk about tariffs that help one industry and hurt another, all we've done is switch who is feeling the pain. So NAFTA absolutely costs certain people jobs. It costs families and sectors jobs. Taxing imports hurts American exporters. So that's the issue. I want as much a possible even playing field. And when we start doing things like exceptions and carve-outs, it's why guys like Art Laffer, Larry Kudlow, and myself are such a big believer in a broad-based tax reform, because tariffs beg for exceptions. It begs for cronyism. It's a great thing for lobbyists.
And by the way,
I want American manufacturers to have jobs. That doesn't come from tariffs.
Bahnsen, let me just come to you quickly as we pivot towards the markets, because we've been looking at some decent declines, and we tried to have a pop yesterday. We're rolling over again yesterday, trying to bounce off the lows. You have an S&P 500 bouncing off the 200-day moving average. Don't want to get super technical, but all of that means is that is a very key support level. And if we can't hold that level, if we close below it, you could then see further declines. A lot of people are saying, look, we're at oversold levels, which is what you see at the bottom of that chart. Talk us through the emotions in the market and how important some of the technicals are right now as we also balance fundamentals.
Well, I hope I don't upset you, because I'm a fundamentalist and not a technician. And I think the charts are always correct until they're not correct. And I don't think it's holding the 200-day, by the way. I think that in the last half hour, it started to break again lower. But no, look, the chart is just going to reflect what is happening. And what's happening is the uncertainty. Jerry talked about the consumer not knowing what's going to happen, whether it's the tax cuts, the tariffs, other issues. But I'm a supply sider. I think the production side of the economy is so important here. And I can't imagine a business owner making decisions right now where they don't know what lumber's going to cost in a month, where they don't know where things stand with the auto sector, with industrials, not to mention the tax cuts. And David, you talked about the Trump cuts being extended. There's a whole lot of other tax cuts that were put out there.
That's right.
That's just table stakes. That's the bare minimum.
But at least get that done.
You have to get that done.
At the very least get that done.
But if they don't don't get it done till the end of the year, what is the lost opportunity between now and November in terms of capital expenditures and industrial investment?
But at the end of the day, he ran as a guy who was going to grow the economy and put money in your pocket. And he knows better than anyone else. Right. If he doesn't do that, he and his movement are out. So I give the guy like a little bit of space on this one.
I would just say I agree with you. And I would say like individual investors, consumers don't have to be freaking out. Right. Wall Street is freaking out. Big time stock investors are freaking out because they're marked on how well they do today, in the next hour, in the next month. You don't have to worry about that, right? At the end of the day, this will take a while to play out. We do have to be a little patient with the process.
You know what? I will say this. I manage $7 billion, and I don't care what happens to the stock market in the next 30 days. But the stock prices are reflecting business expectations further out. And I think that you're exactly right. President Trump does care about this. He's still driving it. The proof is he did get the House vote thing out of committee by one vote with him picking up the phone.
And he talked about it in the State of the Union. He made a specific reference to extending
I don't think he's given it up, but I'm just trying to keep it out there because I worry that other things can take priority because he has a very robust agenda. I want this at the top of the list.
Thank goodness he has a robust agenda.
Sure.
Thank goodness for that.
Could DOGE provide the backing for Trump literally getting rid of entire departments? We're going to be talking about Department of Education specifically in the next hour, but is that conceivable that the executive office could start the process of getting rid of entire federal agencies?
You know, it's funny. I think it could, but education might be an exception to that. I want the whole education department to go, but I don't think it's going to be because DOGE embarrasses its spending. It's going to be more philosophical that education's best at a state and local level, and we don't need a big federal bureaucracy. What DOGE can do and has been doing and needs to keep doing, but be very precise and good about doing, is embarrassing wasteful spending. Just shining a light on things that are not the way American people expect them to be. The more they do that and don't make mistakes along the way, the more you empower Congress to do its job. Congress has to codify this into law, David.
I just want to push back on like the scalpel versus chainsaw thing because I think it's really interesting. In this case, I don't think we have the luxury of going slow or being too careful. Because
I agree.
And here's why. It doesn't matter what you do. You could scalpel cut the federal government or chainsaw cut it, and the response is going to be the same from the left. They're always going to treat it like you took a chainsaw. So my view is if they're going to treat it that way, then you may as well take the big instruments and get big things done.
And
because we've been talking about this for like 40 years and nothing ever happened.
Wouldn't you agree with a $36 trillion debt? We are no longer afforded the luxury of time.
I would, except for we're not talking about doing anything on the $36 trillion of debt with DOGE. We're talking about reallocating money from wasteful stuff to other things. Congress has to take spending out. So DOGE is not there to limit the budget. Congress has to do that. I will push back on Brian's pushback because you're focusing on how the left's going to do it anyways. Right. I'm not talking about the left. I don't care what they say. I'm talking about the American people are going to be more supportive of this if it's done in a precise manner, a careful manner.
Well, by the way, they're already 76% in favor of what DOGE is doing.
And we're in very early innings. I'm talking about not the last 5 weeks, the next 5 months. If we continue to do this and get results and do it carefully and do it with diligence, the American people are going to stay on board. Yeah. My fear, Brian, is we lose the American people if we come in and we're blowing stuff up and there's a lot of collateral damage and we're not actually cutting the things we need.
Good, heated conversation. I love it all, especially when David starts quoting page 55 of textbooks. You know it's going to be good.